Sanibonani, Sanbonan, Dovela. I have to bring in the Ngobo thing that was discussed earlier. Yeah, I've been in health and safety for the last 30 plus years. That's how long I've been an inspector as well. So being the chief inspector for the last 6-7 years was a privilege for me because I got to work with many people. But before we go into that, I'd like to acknowledge the President, the First Lady, the CEO, and all your special guests. And thank you for the opportunity that you have afforded the Department of Employment and Labour. Of course, we always take credit for our organization wherever we go, and we do appreciate that. Just a quick one, maybe a bit of an icebreaker. I said to my wife, we've been married also for about 30 years, so when I got the job, I got married, you see. So I said to her, it's a black tie event. You better get me the black suit out. She says, what black suit? You don't have one. So anyway, there I am standing, and normally I wear braces, and I've got the braces with the pants on, but no top, you see. So I put the bow tie on, like Gregory. So Gregory, I know about the bow tie, but my wife said, you walk out of here with that, I'm leaving you. So anyway, yeah, so this is how she sent me out. Anyway, my presentation, I want to put it on the table very simply. I've been doing inspections in the construction industry since my early years, and one of the things I hated was awards. Any awards that happened. So you go to a company and the company gets 80-90%, almost 100%, and I go in and I serve prohibition notices, I close the place. So how do you bring the two together, that this place is getting awards but I'm closing it? So there was that challenge. But today I can say to you, and you're going to see from the presentation, it's a greater privilege for me to be standing up here today, seeing what the construction industry is doing. It is one of the best performing industries during the COVID period, more so than most other sectors. If that wasn't the case, I would not have accepted the invitation, Mr. Mofokeng. So just something out of interest. I take it I press that way, okay. I'm not one of those who has a long-term memory. You see, I said to my wife many times, if my car didn't know the way home, I'd probably be somewhere else. Same with my presentations, I need to see something. So this presentation gives you an idea of the last 5 months of the inspections that the inspectors have been doing in both the public sector and the private sector. So from 1 April to 31st of August, and I can tell you the last month of September would not have been any more different than what you see here in terms of the figures. So let me quickly explain to you what you see here, and this is just for you to understand what's happening in the country during the time of COVID. And let me tell you now, there's very little happening during the time of COVID than before COVID, except for a couple of highlights like the construction industry. So in this particular slide, you see on your extreme left all the provinces listed, and you'll see that if you go down to the bottom of that slide, you'll see that it lists the total number of inspections. So over here on that line, you'll be able to pick up then over here 28,000 inspections, but you'd have to add on the follow-up inspections. And because I'm leaving the presentation with you, you'll quickly need to understand what I'm going to be leaving with you. So effectively, you're looking at 31,000 plus inspections, and then September added on, which would give us 35,000 plus inspections for the 6 months of this year. Now, what is quite significant is if you look over here, you'll see 674 inspectors. About 18 months back, we're sitting on 174 inspectors, but in the last 18 months, we've added 500 new OHS inspectors in the country permanently. So they're on the ground, and we now have feet in just about every one of our 126 labour centres, which was not the case before the time. Now let's quickly look at this, because this should be of interest to you. If you look on the extreme, the second column over there, you'll see the compliance and the non-compliance that's taking place there. And then I've added in the compliance rate. And if you look, you'll see a place like Gauteng giving you about a compliance rate of 77, 78%, KZN 56, which is what they've been cruising at for the last 18 months or so. And then you get to Mpumalanga, very low compliance, which is what it's been doing all the time. Northern Cape, the same thing. Western Cape, same thing. And Limpopo, the same thing. So you can see some of the provinces, employers are struggling with their compliance rates, which should be an area of concern. And then you'll see the number of inspectors in each province. That's health and safety only. You look at the next slide. Again, this just gives you a further breakdown. I'm not going to go into it, but this is the one that I'd refer you to. Over here, if you look, sorry, I need to, oops, one back. If you look at that one, that's the construction sector. Now, why it's significant, if you look at other sectors with a greater percentage than the construction sector, you're not going to see the same number of inspections in that sector. Now remember, I said you take into consideration not just the number of inspections, but add on the follow-ups as well. So in this sector, you can see there's quite a high percentage, what is that, 20% or something. If you look at that in terms of the inspectors going back because of the non-compliance. This is important to us because we want to see employers being prosecuted. I'm saying that specifically. We want to see them prosecuted where they are not complying, because we give them sufficient opportunity or time to comply, and this becomes a problem when you give them the time and they don't bother to do anything about it in the time that they've got, which would be problematic. Now, quite interesting, if you look at the bottom over there, you'll see the retail and wholesale sector. And the number of inspections are quite high, 9,461. It is quite a high number, and that has been the case throughout the inspections that we have been doing in the last 18 months, the wholesale and retail sector, because it is a high touch point. Members of the public and those who are at work stand a very good chance of becoming infected in that area. But look at the compliance rate. Compliance rate is a meager 56%, and that is where it's hovered around roughly 56 to 60%, very little over 60% at some stage. So compliance in the construction sector, when you look at the number of inspections that we had done, almost 4,000 out of the 30,000 with the follow-ups, then I think you guys can be proud of your sector in terms of what you've achieved. Now, there are other sectors. Iron and steel remains a concern. Manufacturing remains a concern. Food and beverage at 59%. If you're not doing over 80%, there's a problem. Now, let's talk about compliance very briefly. There are areas that you can get a notice on for not complying, which could be an incident register, then you could get a non-compliance for something such as not having your health and safety program in place, no risk assessments, no nothing, and these become more critical in terms of compliance. So the fact that you get 73%, these are some of the nitty-gritty issues. Now remember, some of the big issues that have come out is the failure to comply with the direction that has been published by the Minister of Labour. There were 4, the 4th one coming out in June of this year, and it was simple issues. The direction is nothing new from what you're going to find in the hazardous biological agents, the regulations. Very simple things. You need to be told to wash your hands. You should have been doing that all the time. There's no additional cost there. Sanitizer, we agree, there is an additional cost and there are additional risks associated with having that. But to have your place closed because you're not disinfecting your work area and you're allowing the virus or you're allowing a greater chance of people becoming infected, then you're looking at a concern, because an inspector will go in and shut down the place, all because you failed to do simple little things. So that has changed, of course, over time. And just to touch on something, a more controversial issue, I'm going to move off this slide and move more to the, you can go into the detail there, the notices you can go into as well. Suffice it to say that if you look at the contravention notices, there were 11,000 served, and one of the areas of concern out of the inspections that were done, the 31,255 prohibition notices were served either for a part of a workplace or the whole workplace, which means that you effectively close the workplace. Not so going to go into the improvement notices, but it's significant that 12,000 notices were served in 5 months. So vaccinations and refusal to work, which is obviously a key point. Should you be vaccinated? Now we all know what the President said, and we can go on and on and on about it. Just to get a bit of a gauge, has everyone vaccinated here? Anyone? There we go. There's a famous happy that you've done that. They'll keep their support with you. But let's go to the reasoning quickly, and I've been asked to look at the vaccination issue. And there is a crux issue here with the vaccination. Now, I'm not telling you not to vaccinate. That's not what I'm here to do. And I'm not going to tell you to do that. If you want to vaccinate, go ahead and vaccinate. And if you have a good reason, good for you. But here's the crux of the whole story. If you're looking at what the legislation is saying, go to the direction. The last direction was written with vaccination issues in mind. So it says to the employer, for example, you will make the decision whether or not you're going to vaccinate at your workplace. But it doesn't say go ahead and do it willy-nilly, or because you feel like it, or because you must, or whatever tickles your fancy. It doesn't say that. It says to the employer, and be clear on this, follow a process. And in that process, once you have followed it all the way, then make your decision. So it starts with your a risk assessment, and it goes through and it talks about a plan, and then it talks about you communicating with key stakeholders. Key stakeholders are your workers. Key stakeholders are your health and safety reps and committees. Compliance officer comes into the thing. You are required to communicate. You are required to know at your workplace who are the people that are vulnerable workers as defined. Are you able to accommodate them? If you are able to accommodate them at the workplace, how will you go about doing that? If not at the workplace, can they go and work at home? Now, some employers are so smart about this whole thing, they are going ahead and registering their people without the permission of the workers. You are contravening the law by doing that. Again, I'm saying to you, I'm not saying don't vaccinate. And I'm not saying to the employers, don't make your decision. I said, follow the procedure. Otherwise, you are going to find yourself tackled with legal issues. People will tackle you. Now, when someone says to you they're not going to take it because of a constitutional reason, what is the constitutional reason? Why is it that you don't want this? And you, the onus is on you now to indicate to the employer why. What exactly is the rationale? And that includes medical reasoning and everything else that you might come up with. So the employer has to factor all this in before making the decision. The same applies to my employer. I cannot be forced to do something unless the employer has followed the process. And today I indicated the same to the new inspectors. The employers are required to follow procedure. Now, if you are, and this is the other part of it, the refusal to work, workers who feel that their lives are in danger cannot walk off the premises immediately. Again, there's a procedure that must be followed in terms of the direction. The direction clearly sets out, do the following. And part of that is that the workers must bring it to the attention of the employer that there's something wrong, or someone that represents the employer. It could be the Health and Safety Committee, the reps, the compliance officer. The employer then has 24 hours or thereabouts to bring an inspector in to do an assessment. And if the inspector decides that they are going to serve a notice, then they must serve the notice. Now, the employees would be right if the inspector serves a prohibition notice. Then they are within their justification to walk off the premises. Again, procedure. They don't follow the procedure, they cannot walk off the premises unless there's a very good reason. Follow the process. So I've put a whole lot of slides in here that you can look at with regard to vaccination, and you can decide for yourself, of course, what is critical for you. You are more than welcome to engage me on this as well. After I've left, my details is online on the Department of Labour's website. I just want to bring one thing to your attention quickly. For your sector, you have got a sectoral protocol or guideline that was developed a couple of months back that you can use. It's been signed off. That was my responsibility to sign it off after the industry agreed to it. I'll then bring that to the attention of NEDLAG. So there are two sectors who opted for a document: the chemical sector and the construction industry. And that is a document your industry developed with your inputs and so on. The very last thing, and then I'm finished, is the Annexure C. Now, the Annexure C, very simply, was added to assist all the role players in making the decisions that are required to be made when it comes to vaccinations. Even the courts can rely or lean on this document in the event that any person decides they're going to take the matter to court. So at the back of the direction, there's a document called an Annexure C. Very important document. Again, I'm not going to go through the detail of it. Suffice it to say that you can obviously go through it yourself, and after that, if you want to engage me, you're more than welcome. For the time that the national disaster issue is in play, this document is in place. The moment that is removed, then this whole thing will most likely fall away. But I'd like you to remember one important thing. The regulations for hazardous biological agents has been amended, and any future pandemic that may come around will be able to stand, and you'll be able to use it in the same way that you've used this direction. With that, I'd like to wish you well for the rest of your awards evening, and it is a privilege for me to be here. Thank you very much.